In the deep foundations of the world, beneath mountains that no map remembers, lie the ruins of a darkness older than Sauron himself. Before the ring, before the fall of Númenor, there were other kingdoms, citadels of shadow forged by the first Dark Lord, places where even the Valar feared to tread, where light itself was devoured, and from which the very concept of evil was born. Today we descend into the hidden kingdoms of evil, Morgoth's strongholds across Arda. And though they have long since turned to ash and myth, their echoes still haunt Middle-earth. Long before the First Age, before elves or men ever woke beneath the stars, there was only the music, the Ainulindale. In that divine song, one voice rose against the harmony. Melkor, greatest of the Ainur, sought to twist the melody, to shape the world to his own will. When the world was made, he descended into it, and with him came the seed of corruption. While the Valar shaped mountains, oceans, and stars, Melkor sought dominion. He wandered the newborn world alone, kindling fire where there should be light, and shadow where there should be peace. But to rule, he needed a kingdom, a seat from which to command his growing malice. Thus began his search for the deepest and darkest places in Arda. He found his first fortress in the uttermost north of the world, a place so cold and vast that even the Valar feared it. There, beneath endless mountains and frozen wastes, he began to build Utumno, the first of the great strongholds of evil. Utumno was not merely a fortress. It was a world unto itself, a labyrinth of shadows stretching for leagues beneath the ice. Vast halls were carved into the roots of the mountains, lit not by flame, but by the sickly glow of unholy fire. Rivers of molten rock flowed through caverns vast enough to swallow cities. And in those pits, Morgoth gathered his servants, the corrupted spirits who would become Balrogs, and the first twisted creatures of Arda. From Utumno, Morgoth began his first war against the Valar. He marred the land, froze the seas, and shattered the light of the young world. The Valar, seeing the ruin he had caused, waged war in return. The Battle of the Powers, the first great conflict in Arda's history. When the war ended, Utumno was destroyed. The Valar captured Morgoth, and he was bound in chains by Tulkas the Strong. But though the fortress was ruined, its darkness was never truly erased. Deep within its ruins, evil festered, and something of Morgoth's malice remained buried in the stone. In time, that ancient shadow would seep into the north again. When Morgoth was released after 3 ages in captivity, he returned to Middle-earth. But Utumno was gone, buried under mountains of ruin, so he turned to the west of the northern lands, to a range of mountains that stretched across the world like a crown of iron. There, he raised his second fortress, Angband, the Iron Hell. Unlike Utumno, Angband was not hidden in the deep north. It stood as a defiant black mark upon the world, a kingdom of smoke, ash, and iron. Its gates were guarded by endless legions of orcs, dragons, and balrogs. Above its mighty halls rose the Thangorodrim, 3 colossal volcanic peaks that spewed shadow into the heavens. Angband became Morgoth's capital during the First Age, his seat of power throughout the wars of Beleriand. Here he ruled for centuries, sending forth endless hosts against the elves and their allies. It was in Angband that he forged his iron crown, the crown that would bear the 3 Silmarils stolen from Feanor. It was here that dragons were bred, and where Glaurung, the father of dragons, first crawled from the depths. And it was from Angband that the great wars of the First Age would erupt, shaping the fate of all Middle-earth. But Angband was more than a fortress. It was a kingdom of nightmares, a factory of monsters. Beneath its halls lay pits where prisoners were tortured, twisted, and remade into mockeries of life. Some of the first orcs were said to have been born in those caverns, captured elves, corrupted by pain and malice. The sound of their cries echoed through the ages. Even the mightiest of the elves could not endure its horror. When the elf Madros was captured by Morgoth, he was hung by his wrist from the cliffs of Thangorodrim, a living warning to all who defied the Dark Lord. For centuries, Angband seemed unassailable, a wound that would never heal. It took the combined power of the Valar and their hosts at the end of the First Age to bring it down in the War of Wrath. The Thangorodrim were broken, and the sea swallowed the north. Morgoth was chained once more and cast beyond the world into the void. But some whispered that the deepest tunnels of Angband still remain. Though Morgoth himself was banished, his shadow did not vanish with him. His lieutenant, Sauron, had learned much in the dark halls of Angband, and from that knowledge, he built his own fortress, one that would carry Morgoth's terror into the ages beyond. This was Tol-in-Gaurhoth, the Isle of Werewolves. It stood in the river Sirion, once a fair island fortress called Minas Tirith, built by the elves to guard the west. But when Sauron took it, he filled it with beasts of the night, creatures bred in the image of his master's cruelty. In those halls, the howls of werewolves echoed through the stone. Captured souls were devoured by dark spirits that wore the forms of monstrous wolves. Among them was Draugluin, sire of all werewolves, and his greater master, Carcharoth, the wolf of Angband. Tol-in-Gaurhoth became a symbol of Morgoth's lingering corruption, proof that even after his fall, his legacy of fear could spread and take new forms. It was here that one of the most tragic tales of the First Age unfolded, the story of Beren and Luthien, who descended into Sauron's fortress to free the captives of his dark domain. There, Luthien's song and the might of Huan broke Sauron's power, driving him from his own fortress. But the island never truly recovered. It remained cursed, a ruin haunted by echoes of Morgoth's power. The tales of Utumno, Angband, and Tol-in-Gaurhoth are recorded in the histories of the West. But what of the East, the vast and silent lands beyond Mordor, where the sun rises over deserts and uncharted mountains? Tolkien left only fragments of knowledge about these regions, yet here too, whispers of Morgoth's touch remain. During the early ages, Morgoth's influence spread far beyond Beleriand. He sought dominion over all Arda, and his shadow reached into lands even the Valar never set foot upon. Some writings speak of strongholds in the distant northeast, where dark cults of men and Maiar may have once gathered to worship him. Even after his banishment, these places remained, dark temples and cities built in secret. It is said that Sauron, long after the fall of his master, traveled east to those forgotten lands. There he found the remnants of Morgoth's worshippers, dark priests, ancient shrines, and ruins older than the First Age itself. From these, he forged his own dominion, teaching the Easterlings and Haradrim the worship of the shadow. Could these have been Morgoth's hidden kingdoms, remnants of his empire, buried by time? We may never know, but the silence of those lands tells its own story, one of old gods, dark rites, and ruins swallowed by sand and snow. Even when Angband fell and the world was remade, Morgoth's fortresses were not truly gone. For Morgoth was not merely a being, he was a principle of corruption. He poured his malice into the very substance of Arda, and thus his kingdoms never needed to stand in stone. The world itself became his fortress. As Tolkien wrote, the whole of Middle-earth was Morgoth's ring. Every shadow, every act of greed, every whisper of despair was part of his domain. And from that poisoned legacy, Sauron inherited his master's craft, building his own dark towers in imitation of Morgoth's ancient thrones. Barad-dûr, the Dark Tower, was the echo of Angband. Its foundations lay upon the same will to dominate that Morgoth first kindled in the Void. In Sauron's forging of the One Ring, we see Morgoth's original sin repeated, the desire to control the fate of the world itself. Even after Sauron's final fall, evil did not die. For Morgoth's shadow lies deeper, in the hearts of those who crave power, in the ruins that still scar the land, and in the whispers of the nameless things that dwell beneath the earth. Which of these lost strongholds chilled you the most, or revealed a secret about Middle-earth you never expected? If you enjoyed this journey into the hidden kingdoms of evil, don't forget to like and subscribe for more tales from Tolkien's shadowed lore. What ancient terror should we uncover next? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and as always, see you on the next one.